Hey guys, this girl got game. Welcome back to Hakuoki Kyoto Wins, where we're doing our very last route, the Alone ending, which I think continues, though not mistaken, into Edo Blossoms, but it begins here. So what we have to do is load Chapter 4 in the Record of Service, November 1867. So that's what we're gonna do. Let's see, so in an attempt to neutralize Ito and his followers, the Shinsengumi lures the guardians of the Imperial Tomb to the Aberono Koji, but they are surrounded by Satsuma troops under the command of Amagiri and Shiranui. Kazuma takes this opportunity to attack the headquarters of the Shinsengumi. Okay, so that's the background. And then we gotta pick a boy. I think you can... Whoops. Yeah, you can pick any of the boys. I'm thinking... Pick Toshi, low romance, because out of all the guys, I think he'd be the least broken up about us leaving, so I'm picking him. Why not? Alright, low romance. Chapter 4, 1867, Toshi, low romance. Yes. Alright. We'll let that load up for us. And then we'll skip ahead. And I think I need to make... 2 choices. And then we'll see what happens. So this is leading up to Ito's assassination. Let's see what happens. If it's going to continue, I assume she doesn't die. Hopefully she's not just withering away in a village somewhere, like she sometimes does. I'll hope for that, at least. Okay, so we're talking about the setup. And, out of curiosity, what are my options? I wrote them down, I didn't actually look at them that closely. So we're gonna stay home, apparently. Staying home. We'll get there. I'm sorry I'm so quiet. I'm trying to think, like, what the circumstances will be. Are we just dismissed? Are we released? Do we not care about anybody here? So we're just like, eh. I'm gone. Okay. So we're staying home. Not helping with the assassination. So Kazuma's going to attack. We must just go and get Hajime, I'm assuming. Like last time. That's so sad. Hajime's always so happy when we go and get him. At least I get to see most of the guys. In the short amount of time. Having that confab and everything helps with that. Hajime, the bean! I know a butterfly landed on your moon of a heart. I knows it. Okay, so the I'll stay here must be when Toshi saves us from Sanan. Interesting. Alright. Well, we'll see what happens. I wonder if we finish Chapter 4 with that being said, so we have like really low romance with everybody and then didn't help with anything, so the game's like, well, you're on your own, I guess. Good job. You had your option of 12 guys, you couldn't get one of them to look your way. Wow, that's terrible. It's fine though. It's meant to be this time. I meant to end up alone. So it's fine. It's fine if you meant it. Okay. I'll stay here. I won't bother you, sir. Probably still chat with, yeah, you guys. Gonna come and chat me up a bit. That's fine. I don't mind getting one more head pat from you, Sano. We can do that for sure. Ended up getting points with both, Sano and Hajime. Right before the end. Alright. Alright, and then that should be the end of chapter 4. After we sum up. So, loading chapter 5. And it's slow! It's a slow zoom. Not even a zoom, but just a slow fade. No preview picture. Just chapter 5. It's a good sign. Very good sign. Alright, let's see how long this is. December 1867. Assuming I can't... No, I can actually skip. Okay. We can skip some of the common stuff that happens in chapter 5. So we still observe the meeting between all the captains. Interesting. Okay. So this plays out the same. It's honestly been ages since I've seen this scene play out. What will happen to us? Maybe Sen and Kimigiku come to our rescue in the woods. Like, we're stuck with Inoue, and then Sen and Kimigiku come and get us, and we live in the demon village. That would be okay. I'd be alright with that. Okay. Kondo and Okita are gone because they're sick. Now we're doing slow fades. Ooh! It's very quiet. It was a cold December morning when Kondo and Okita were sent to Osaka Castle. I was performing the final check on everyone's belongings when Hijikata had called upon me. It would be you, wouldn't it, Toshi? I grew almost sick with worry. Had something happened to Kondo and Okita? I slowly made my way to Hijikata's room as the potential scenarios played out in my head. I hear you there. In the common room, Hijikata sat, waiting for me. Because of how the last few days had played out, Hijikata always seemed to wear a grave expression. The absence of Okita and Kondo seemed to break the heart of Hijikata silently but assuredly. Aw, poor Toshi. Knowing he was dealing with so much, I did my best to listen to any request Hijikata may have had. I was hoping to be of service right beside Hijikata. However, what Hijikata had revealed to me proved this was not the case. Sorry to say, but I want you to head to Osaka Castle with Kondo and Soji. That was the complete opposite of what I wanted. True, I was quite concerned about Kondo and Okita, and at one point I even entertained the idea of possibly heading to Osaka Castle with them. But since Dr. Matsumoto was already at Osaka Castle, all I wanted to do was care for things around here and do my best to play my part with everyone else. Thinking about all of the duties, including making the warriors' meals and tending to the wounded, I truly hoped this was the time I could show my worth to everyone by helping those in need. I looked up at Hijikata, and although I was shaking, I mustered the courage to speak my mind. May I ask you one thing? Are you sending me to the Osaka Castle because you think I'd be in the way during the war? Hijikata's face remained stern, and he did not seem to be offended by the foreignness of my question, but he just shook his head and closed his eyes. You're so good to us, and if I could have it my way, I'd want you to be right here with us. But I'm asking you this as a personal favor. I want someone I can trust to handle and look after the two of them. So please, would you go to Osaka Castle for me? Hijikata trusts me. He wanted me to look after them. And he even said please to me. Are you well? My heart fluttered at the sound of his words. Well, I picked a good choice for the guy. If me going allows you to enter the battlefield without worry, then yes, I will go. Thanks. Please, take care of them. Hijikata nodded from the curtness of my response, and he answered with full confidence. Interesting. I had known that the Fushimi Magistrate would become a battleground in the case that the Satsuma or Choshu were to strike. I wasn't in any position to help them, or even watch the fighting take place. Everyone, please be safe. Deep in my stomach, I felt a pang of reluctance as I left Kyoto for Osaka Castle. They're not done yet. As soon as we'd arrived in Osaka, Kondo and Okita were brought to Dr. Matsumoto for examination. However, the results brought both good and bad news to us. The good news involved Kondo's recovery. Yay! We had been informed that Kondo's injury was not life-threatening, and we were just waiting for the shattered bones to heal and align. Okita, however, had less fortunate news from the results of the exam. The tuberculosis had begun to eat away at his lungs, and he was given a solitary room in the castle to recuperate. As I watched after the two of them, we had welcomed the New Year's celebration. A large battalion of troops were marching from Edo, and they passed Osaka Castle, later trekking through the Toba Highway headed towards Kyoto. Upon bearing witness to the sheer number of soldiers heading to Kyoto, it seemed to convince us all that the Satsuma and Choshu would surrender. If such news were true, then perhaps we could return to Kyoto faster than we'd expected. Yeah, about that. January 1867. War between the shogunate and the Satsuma Choshu troops erupted, causing my wishful thinking to come to an abrupt and depressing halt. Without knowing what exactly set the war in motion, I heard cannons and gunshots from in the direction of Kyoto. No one thought to give someone like me any updates. All I was told was that war had finally broken out, and I spent each and every day in worry, alone. During the afternoon of the 5th of January, the castle had rumbled with commotion. The shogunate troops were allegedly pushed back, and then retreated from Kyoto in the direction of Fushimi. Does that mean the shogunate had lost? When I tried to pry answers from people in the castle, no one knew any details. Everyone seemed too busy thinking of how this affected themselves. Eventually, the men of the Shinsengumi began coming to the castle, one after another. I did my best to welcome the men of the Shinsengumi, despite all of them looking worn and dejected. Their familiarity with me meant they could share the bad news. The Satsuma and Choshu were victorious. My concern for the safety of the men still fighting out there grew exponentially as I heard the sad news. Inoue had died in war, and Yamazaki was critically injured. Aside from them, many of our other warriors were killed as well. From what everyone had been telling me, before they knew what was what, now the Satsuma Choshu forces were appointed as imperial court troops. As soon as Yoshinobu Takagawa, who led as the supreme commander of the shogunate, heard this, he left the castle on a ship to Edo, fearing retribution as an enemy of the new emperor. Even though I was at the castle during the same time as him, I had no idea any of this had occurred. Now, the domain who used to assist the shogunate troops were under the jurisdiction of the Satsuma and Choshu forces, who were now imperial troops. Under these trying times, it was growing difficult to justify continuing the war while holding the castle, so the remaining men here retreated to Edo. As for the Shinsengumi, they had been given orders to cease fighting, so, like the rest of the shogunate troops, they were forced to retreat to Edo. Amidst the confusion, I was tasked with treating the wounded men who had returned to the castle. After most of the men were back, I was able to see Hijikata. His body was noticeably thinner, almost emaciated, since I'd last seen him at the Fushimi Magistrate. I couldn't blame him. We had lost the war, and many of his comrades died out there. No words of comfort came readily for me to give. However, it seemed as though Hijikata read through my concerns, and he approached me first.
Hey, sorry for leaving you here to deal with Kondo and Soji all by yourself. I know you've probably heard already, but the Satsuma and Choshu troops were instated under the Emperor, and our supreme commander ran off. At this rate, we couldn't continue fighting even if we wanted to. We have to return to Edo. But this isn't over. When we're back in Edo, we're going to convince the Shogun and the Shogunate that we plan on continuing this war.
Okay. At first, Hijikata came off as a little critical of himself, but towards the end his powerful words showed that the Shinsengumi still had a future. When Hijikata heard my response, he nodded happily. Getting Toshi feels all of a sudden. What is this?
So, there's one more thing I need to tell you. When we return to Edo, I want you to leave us and return to your home. I want you to wait there for the war to end. Wait for your father there too.
Hijikata's sudden request made me freeze. I didn't know what to do. Why am I the only one who gets to go home, when the Shinsengumi was going through so much? No, yet again, it was only me. What? But I want to be with you guys. I understand I'm not an official warrior, but I thought at least that I was a member. I thought I was your page, Hijikata. Unlike our last encounter at Fushimi, Hijikata couldn't bring himself to look back at me. This was probably because I was asking him to give me a reason neither of us wanted to hear. Once the order was said aloud, I knew that I couldn't go against his wishes. I didn't even notice that Hijikata had walked up to me and stood as closely as he had been, and he placed his hands tenderly on my shoulders. His voice was more gentle and kinder than usual, and he put forth effort to convince me.
I wanted to keep you by our side as much as possible, but it can't be this way. The next time our forces meet, we're fighting to the death, and you are a woman. We cannot ask you to share this burden with us. Please. For me. I can't bear for you to share the same fate as Gen or Yamazaki. I hope you understand.
For a moment, I didn't answer or look up. Hijikata calmly patted my back a few times, and he walked off without another word. It took everything inside of me to refrain from turning back or even responding to Hijikata. My eyes welled with uncontrollable tears. All I could do was bid farewell to the shadow as it walked off. The shadow. This is a new view. January 9th, 1867. The Shinsengumi were getting on the steamboat provided by the shogunate for their return to Edo. I separated from Hijikata and the other men, and I came aboard the... oh boy. Fujiyamaru, I think, along with Kondo, Okita, and the other injured. A few days after the ship had set sail, Yamazaki, who had been suffering and fighting through his grave injuries, passed away beside the Kishu Sea. Watching a close friend die in person made me finally understand where Hijikata was coming from. I assumed this was the beginning of what could be a long, painful chapter for the Shinsengumi. Hijikata's request for me to leave meant that I would be involved in none of it as it unfolded. 4 years had passed since I'd come to Kyoto, and I'd shared many memories with the Shinsengumi. As I held these memories in my heart, I prayed for everyone's wishes to come true and for their safety. I prayed that when all of this was over, that I could see all of them once again. I looked up at the sky towards the west. Forever and ever. That's so sad. Achievement unlocked, just kiss already! I assume that means I got all the endings with everybody? Like I did all the routes? Is that what that means? Because ending up alone is kind of a weird time to be like, just kiss. I'll have to look that up after. What just kiss already is. Oh, Toshi. My goodness. Making the difficult choices. Darn Inoue and Yamazaki. Both died again. Okay, so we're getting like general pictures for the ending for this. I guess so that you know. You didn't do anything wrong, really. You got an ending that's not a bad ending. It's just, you're alone. There's nobody here. Except for the Shinsengumi guys. So you can get some pictures of them and look at them. Remember all the times it could have been. Or that you did have in another life. Interesting. So he had sent her off, and then was like, no. As a woman, you cannot. Very interesting. Aw, we get some Chizuru pictures. That's nice. That's protecting Sen. how that's going to continue. Maybe she just talks about, like, kind of sums up what happens in the next game from history's point of view. Like what she ended up hearing, how history remembered the Shinsengumi, or something like that. That could be interesting. And maybe what kind of life she had away from them in the end, once it was all said and done. Fiend, you'll get an empty cherry blossom tree. Yay! Thank you. Just kiss already. Oh, fantastic. You got any more achievements for me? Yep. It could have been worse, and does this mean I can go outside now? Now, does this mean I can go outside now? Has gotta be I got everything in this game. It's gotta be. Oh my goodness, it's ridiculous. 3 more achievements. Yay! It was definitely worth it doing that extra ending. Alright, well, we've been cut off from the Shinsengumi, and we'll figure out how that all ends up in the next game, but we are done, so maybe I should gab. Yeah, let's gab about our thoughts about this, shall we? I'll just start off by saying that I love this game. I'm sure that will come as no surprise to anybody. It's definitely a real gem, extremely high quality. I knew before I started this that I was going to fall in love with it, though, because historical fiction is my jam, and this historical fiction is written extremely well. Being a game with so many routes, I honestly wasn't expecting as much difference in story between each route, but there were some pretty significant differences in a lot of them. And even with the ones where it wasn't too major, they still definitely had their own distinct feel to all of them, so that was wonderfully done. It's why putting together my point list was so freaking hard, but I'll get to that a little later. Not procrastinating, promise, honest. Let's see, there are quite a few instances where words are missing, or sentence structure's a little jank, or when lines are assigned to the wrong characters. The last one probably wouldn't be as big of a problem if you have voice acting on, but there were quite a few moments of confusion for me. That is to be expected, though, when something's localized, but overall, I think they did a bang-up job of translation, and I liked that they had an encyclopedia with terms that came up in the game so you could get more information if you wanted. I know a lot of games, they include information like that in the protagonist's thoughts, which can take you out of the moment. But it's nice that they had it separated so you don't have to read the terms right then if you didn't want to, or if you're already familiar with what they mean. Artwork is just wow. I mean, really, wow, gorgeous. Not just CGs, but sprites, backgrounds, so many different expressions and poses for the characters too. This did sometimes lead to some graphical glitches where, like, one of the characters' heads, looking at you, Toshi, would move a little slower than the body, and so it looked like the character kind of wrenched their neck for a second, but that didn't happen too often. And I especially love the fight scenes. Having the movements and the fades and effects for sword hitting or guns firing, it really brought the scenes to life, made them exciting, so that was really well done. Also, want to give a shout out to the ability to scroll back and reload at any point in the dialogue if you skipped over something. That is so great. Fantastic feature. I really wish more VNs would implement that. Definitely liked it a lot. Also the music, beautiful. Lots of beautiful pieces in this game, actually. Really like the music. Let's see what else. Overall story is intriguing. Of course, it's based on real events during this period of history, but I do like the inclusion of the supernatural elements into it. Fits pretty well into everything that's going on, and of course leads to some tense situation and adds some mystery to the story, especially for our protagonist. Speaking of our protagonist, I quite like her. She's extremely sweet, very thoughtful, considerate of others, hard worker, brave when it comes to a lot of things. I do still personally wish she would have trained a little bit, seeing as she's trying to pass herself off as a warrior among the Shinsengumi, but that's just a personal nitpicky thing. Sometimes she does crazy, like, what the heck are you doing type stuff, but that's usually reserved for the bad endings. She seems to keep that kind of stuff to a minimum under the normal routes, normal circumstances. Another nitpicky thing is I wish she talked more during general scenes. One-on-one with a guy, she talks a little more, but there's long periods of time sometimes where she just doesn't say anything, even though she'll have some internal monologue about what's going on around her. But I do wish she would just speak up a little bit more. Though I can't blame her too much, because I'd probably be too intimidated to say much with all of these awesome guys around me, too. Let's see what else. Bad guys. Side characters. Yeah, let's talk about that. The baddies in this game are a lot of fun. Talk about big personalities and great sense of style. Of course, one of the baddies is dateable, but the other ones, especially Amagiri and Shiranui, are so great, and I get unreasonably excited whenever they show up. Of course, Sister Brother and Dear Papa are the real bad guys in the story, though, and they fill that role out well, especially Dad. He's just a bad guy. And I'm interested to see how Chizuru continues to deal with that news in the next game. Actually, in some of the routes, she never ran into her father, so she's yet to run into him, which could be interesting. Sister Brother also is not involved in all the routes. I don't know if that changes going forward or not, but I definitely have complicated feelings towards Kaoru. He's an extremely broken person, for sure, and I feel really bad for him considering the way he was treated. I'd like to hope there can be a good end for Kaoru somewhere, but I don't know if it's possible. I look forward to finding out with him either way, though. Let's see, Sen and Kimigiku are our only female companionship in the game, and I hope we see more of them in Edo. Our girl needs to have some more girl time and go shopping or something. Odango. More Odango dates. They're both lovely, though. I'd like to see Chizuru and Sen get closer as friends. Also, honorable mentions of Takeda, Miki, Nakaoka, and Nomura for their roles and other routes. They're all great side characters. I know I'm missing one guy from Eva's route, but I can't remember his name. And he was kind of bland anyway as far as side characters for me, compared to the other ones I just mentioned. Of course, especially want to mention Inoue for being such a good father figure for our girl when she was sad and scared, and his valiant defense of her even when he was outnumbered. Never got easier watching him die, and I kept hope throughout this entire game that maybe one route he would take the serum. But alas, it never happened, so poor Inoue. Okay, though. It is time to talk about the guys. Our main group. I figured I might as well do my list, as I drool all over them anyway. So, here we go. Who came up on top for at least Kyoto wins side of things? My list may change by the time we finish in Edo, but for right now, based on Kyoto wins, I'd have to say Chikage comes in first for me. He stole my heart the moment he showed up on screen. His route's not the best out of all the routes in the game, but I'm kind of taking overall interaction with him and the other routes as well into account into why he's my number one. I mean, what can I say? I got a thing for the bad guys, especially when they got it bad for a girl and they absolutely fail at wooing. Thought process of, well, I'm pretty bad, so if I'm even more bad, maybe that will impress her. What do you mean it turns her off and she'd rather be with a fake instead of me? It's just, mwah, so good. When he's not trying to impress, though, he actually has some good qualities. He definitely has this air of nobility around him, which makes sense considering he's a demon lord. He holds honor and loyalty in high regard, cares deeply about humans, and has a deep disdain for humans, which plays off nicely off of Chizuru having, being distrustful of demons despite her heritage, and an appreciation for humans that a lot of demons don't have due to their history. And I love that he's willing to have discussions with her about it, and that he will meet her halfway on some points. So, yeah, I'm really excited to pick up his story again in the next game, even though I gotta wait so long because he's at the end. Why did I think that would be a good idea? Anyway, alright, boy number 2. I'm going to have to go with Keisuke Sanan, our mad scientist boy. Bet you didn't see that coming. Or maybe you did. Keisuke was the one looks-wise that I was most attracted to when first starting the game. I will admit, his obsession with Blood and the Furies was kind of terrifying in other routes, but his route put those actions into a completely different light for me. He's a crazy boy, known to burst into poetry at the oddest moments and baffled easily by kindness. How could I not love him? He values trust above all else and is an amazing warrior and protector. The ending of his route was easily one of my favorites. Him keeping one hand on Chizuru while fighting with the other arm was just wonderful, especially because it brings his arm story full circle from the beginning of the game, when Saito explains that wielding a weapon with one arm is a disservice, and then he wields his weapon with only one arm at the end of his route to keep Chizuru safe. It's just, I love it! I just love it so much. Definitely boy number 2 for me. Absolutely. Out of doubt. Boy number 3. Our resident murder puppy, Soji Okita. Honestly, the fact that he was the very first boy when we started this game nearly a year ago, if you can believe that, and he's this high on my list, is a good enough explanation in itself of how amazing Soji is. Or maybe I just really like his smirk and the death threats. I mean, that could be the reason. But he's fun. Dangerous but fun. I really liked his and Chizuru's interactions a lot. I felt she was more assertive in his route than in others, took more initiative, and I think Soji respected her for that. There is a fine line when it comes to Soji, but he's definitely fiercely loyal. Will not hesitate to cut someone up if he thinks someone's in danger. He's also definitely one of the best, if not the best fighter in the entire Shinsengumi. Skills, no joke. The animosity between him and Kaoru is also an interesting piece that I'm really curious as to how it's going to progress in the next game. Another thing I'm wondering about is he had tuberculosis, and every time this boy started getting sick, my heart would ache. My poor boy. But the only time he takes the water of life is in his own route. So I'm curious if he dies in the next game if you're not on his route, or if he pulls the Sanan and chooses the water of life eventually. I'm interested to find out. I hope he sticks around though, because he's got some great quips, and I would miss him a lot if he wasn't around. I don't want to watch him die. Poor boy. Okay, boy number 4 was almost number 3. I literally flipped a coin to choose between him and Soji for which spot they would have, because these boys are just too good, okay? I can't pick. Anyways, Suzuma Yamazaki, talk about your dark horse, our fellow doctor in training / spy / ninja / sweet bean. Man, can Yamazaki do it all and then some. Not the best fighter, and he struggles with that a lot. Seeing Chizuru be there for him and empathize with his feelings, but pointing out that his contributions have value and are needed, and giving him that strength was so lovely to see. He's so gentle with Chizuru too. They make a wonderful team. I honestly didn't know what would happen with Yamazaki, since we don't see much of him under normal circumstances, unless, he and Shimada are off on missions together, but he really surprised me. I'm still not over the whole my dear scene and his boldness. His boy's too much. I love him to pieces, though. He's fantastic. Alright, boy number 5. Going to have to give it to Heisuke. His route was pure sugar, absolutely adorable. His and Chizuru's attraction to each other is so immediate, and their heartbreak at being apart from each other when he leaves, ugh. Plus, all the guys in the Shinsengumi basically being like, I ship you two together, and setting them up on tea dates. Fantastic. I loved, too, how he's been trying to find his place and what he truly believes, and when she comes for him to beg him to come back, he decides, you know what? I don't know much, but I know I love this girl, and the best decision I can make is to always be there for her. That scene was so incredible. Plus, these two were so touchy-feely with each other, holding hands and stuff. Pure fluffy romance at its best. I adored Heisuke and his route. Okay, coming in at number 6 is Kazue Soma. Another dark horse boy that I wasn't sure what to expect from. He starts off on the wrong foot with the Shinsengumi and is similar to Heisuke in that he's trying to find his way in the world. Kazue is definitely a loyal guard dog, as Chikage described him. Not the greatest fighter, but he'll follow any orders even to death. I especially liked Chizuru in his route, since she took on such a mature role because she was a teacher. But I was amazed how their relationship developed. It started with him not even realizing she was a girl at first, and then it ended up with a really romantic moment on the ship where I'm convinced, I am still convinced, he would have kissed her if he hadn't fallen asleep like a big old dummy, and she would have been okay with it. Chizuru's fondness for him too was really nice to see, and I'm curious how things will progress with him, seeing as he's keeping his fury powers hidden from everyone else. So that's Kazue. Boy number 7, going to have to give it to our other resident being, Hajime Saito. The sweet boy who's always trying to be stoic but is just a mushy cinnamon bun is wonderful. His dynamic with Amagiri is also the best thing. They're both always just so done with everything and everybody, and I think if they weren't on opposite sides, they would get together for like a civilized cup of tea and discuss philosophy or something together. He's also an extremely strong fighter, definitely one of the strongest in the Shinsengumi. He likes to try and keep a lid on his emotions, but they always sneak out, and Chizuru is extremely observant when it comes to him. I've always appreciated how, no matter which route we're on, Hajime's always nearby to whisper and explain things to Chizuru so that she understands. And the scene where she's really sick and he risks his cover to come and nurse her during her fever is one of the sweetest moments in the entire game. He definitely has a big heart, and I'm looking forward to picking up his route and hopefully seeing more interactions between him and Amagiri in particular. Alright, we're winding down with the boys. Who's left? Sanosuke Harada, I think, for boy number 8. He's great. Huge flirt, lots of fun at a party, fantastic sense of humor, and very quick with his quips. He likes a girl who's tough, but who's also not afraid to rely on him when she needs it. He's very attentive to Chizuru and always thinks of little ways of cheering her up. Him taking her to see Sen for some girl time when she was sad was so sweet. The only thing that may have detracted from his route, or added to it, depending on your point of view, was that his flirting with Shiranui was fantastic, and I may have ended up shipping those two more than him and Chizuru. Whoops! Shiranui's absolutely crazy in Harada's route, and he's kind of a lone loose cannon when we last see him, so it'll be interesting to see when he shows up again in Harada's route. Something that does make Sano stand out from everyone else, though, is that he's the only boy who manages to stay human before going to Edo. I really was impressed that he smashed the Water of Life and decided that he didn't need it. Whether that changes going forward, we'll see, but I was really impressed that he did that. Okay, number 9 goes to Ryoma Sakamoto. I know, what the heck is the Narcissus doing so far down on my list? Who am I? It sounds crazy, and I'm thinking this is probably gonna be a big change by the time I finish Edo Blossoms, but as of right now, this is where Ryoma falls. I adored his route, for sure. It was such a different side of things compared to some of the other ones. A lot more intrigue, and his Western outfit is just, amazing. I also loved that we're separated from the Shinsengumi by the end of the route, and that we're now an awesome trio with Shiranui tagging along. I can't wait to see more of that in the next game. I think what just threw me off was him and Chizuru. I kept expecting there to be some major betrayal, because I didn't think he had really fallen for her the way he did, but then it turned out he really was just that interested in her. He's definitely really romantic, and wowee did Chizuru fall for him hard and fast. I think by the time I finish his Edo route, he'll be up a lot higher on my list, but for right now, this is where he falls for me. Let's see, number 10. This is probably crazy to have here, but it's Toshi. I know, how can I dare to put the Demon Commander so far down the list? I'm sorry. Someone has to go down here. Doesn't mean I don't love him. If anything, I think he's down here because I'm so much in awe of him. I mean, what a package deal this guy is. Drop dead gorgeous. One of the best, if not the best fighter in the Shinsengumi. Fiercely loyal, brave, honorable, inspiring. I mean, the list, it goes on and on. He's freaking intimidating, to be honest. I do love him as a character. He's kind and sweet, resourceful, incredibly clever. I don't quite buy him in Chizuru. At least not yet. I do get the feeling he's a super slow burn, though. So my thoughts on him may change by the end of the second game, but right now I don't buy him and Chizuru together. So that's why he's down here on the list. Alright, next. Number 11 goes to Shinpachi Nagakora. I'm sad putting Shin down here, because I really like Shin. He's a big guy with a big heart and a big goofball, and I think he might be the actual most pure of the boys. He has strong feelings about things and cares deeply about others. Definitely has strong feelings regarding being manly and what he thinks being a man is all about. Also has very strong feelings regarding the Water of Life. I adored his and Chizuru's relationship. Definitely felt very much like a big brother, little sister dynamic, which is how they feel about it for a lot of the game. Definitely starting to get some hints of romance. It'll be kind of slow going, I'm sure, because Shin's slow when it comes to these things, and so is Chizuru. But I'm sure Sano, he'll get them in the right direction soon enough. The main reason Shin's so far down this list is because of how his route ended. He got the water of life foisted upon him and went mad with bloodlust and forgot what happened. And instead of telling him the truth, Chizuru decides to lie to him. Don't get me wrong, I understand why she did, considering how strongly he felt about Furies, and they were in a dangerous situation still and needed to get to safety. But I really wish she had just assuaged his fears and promised to explain what happened later when they were safe, instead of outright lying to him and hoping that he would never find out about him being a Fury. I felt like they mutually respected each other and cared about each other, and it just didn't sit right with me that she lied to him about this super important thing. So that's why he's down here. Not him as a person, but his root, at least. Which kind of ties into my when I think of Shin, I think about that, and it ruins the memory of Shin for me, unfortunately. I'm hoping things get better in the second game, and that I can put him up higher on my list. I hope. And lastly is Hachiro Iba. I really want to like Hachiro, and I do. I think the reason he's here at the bottom is just that it felt like wasted potential with him. I'm hoping things are better developed in the next game, but for this half, even though we got a ton of new scenes, and Takeda as a villain, and some interesting stuff with grafting a hand from an ancient demon lord, and Hachiro himself just fell a little flat for me. I felt there could have been more going on with him, since he's a very old childhood friend of Chizuru and she had forgotten him and he had known about her healing abilities all this time, and also could have had some baggage with her dad since he studied under him a little. I don't know, he just fell flat, and I wish that there was more when it came to him. He's definitely sweet and protective, you know, stereotypical childhood friend that's been in love for many years but is too scared to try and move things forward in case it ruins things, so he's holding off until he proves he can be a man worthy of her love, etc, etc. Plus, I actually forgot all about adding Hachiro when I first started putting this list together, and then I thought, you know, I should just check, make sure I didn't forget anybody like I did with Soma. I had completely forgotten Hachiro, so his route really didn't make much of an impact at all, and that's very sad. Maybe that's why Chizuru forgot him now, too, that I think about it. Oh, that's terrible. I'm sorry, Hachiro. I'm sorry. I do like you. Please be better in the next game. I have hopes for you. Okay. Did it! This might have been the hardest guy list I've ever put together. There's a couple of instances where guys could have been interchangeable for those spots because they're so even in my mind, but overall I think I got them all where I think they should be. If you guys have your list figured out, I'd love to hear it, so please share that if you feel like it. I'd be really interested to see how these lists change by the time we're done Edo Blossoms. Something to look forward to, I guess. But with that, we are officially also getting on the ship now to leave Kyoto Winds and travel to Edo Blossoms with our boys. But we're gonna take a break from that. Now, I was originally going to joke that we're actually going to travel to England before we go to Edo, because other than Edo Blossoms, I'm also going to check out England Exchange, which is from Hanako Games. It's one of the recommended games that I've had on my list for quite a while, and of course, me and you guys are no stranger to Hanako's games, so I'm looking forward to checking that out finally. But before we get to England as well, there's a certain game I finished not too long ago that just got another extra episode released. Might actually be the final episode of that, so let's go finish that up first, shall we? Thank you very much for joining me for this and listening to my ramblings and carrying on. I appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the new series. Until then, guys, see you later.